I never imagined financial stress would become the defining soundtrack of my 20s, but here I am, living it every day. There's this invisible pressure that clings to me, tighter with each passing month, the relentless squeeze of expenses rising faster than my paycheck, a constant reminder that no matter how hard I work, it might never be enough. When I first moved out on my own, I was filled with hope. I pictured myself building a life, getting a stable job, paying my bills on time, maybe even saving a little for the future. But the reality has been harsh. Rent gobbles up more than half of what I make, and everything else, groceries, utilities, transportation, student loans, feels like a cruel escalation I can't keep pace with. It's like swimming upstream in a current that only grows stronger. Every day, I make decisions based on dollars and cents instead of what feels right or what I want. I skip meals or eat cheap, uninspiring food because fresh groceries are a luxury. I decline invitations to hang out because a night out means dipping into the tiny cushion of my budget that I can't afford to lose. Even basic necessities feel like luxuries, replacing a worn-out pair of shoes or going to the dentist often get pushed aside. The economic environment feels like a maze with no exit. Inflation hikes up prices, but wages barely move. It's maddening. I watch headlines about booming markets and rising rents and wonder where I fit in, or if there's a place for people like me. The system seems designed to keep us running but never arriving, trapped in this loop where bills climb faster than my earnings. This financial pressure gnaws at me in ways I didn't expect. It's not just the numbers, it's the way it shakes my confidence and peace of mind. I lie awake at night thinking about how I'll cover next month's rent or if an unexpected expense will tip me into overdraft. I feel embarrassed talking about money, even with close friends or family, because I don't want pity or to seem like I can't handle life. But inside, the weight is crushing. It sometimes feels like a silent, lonely battle. My dreams, once vivid and alive, have quietly slipped into the background. I used to dream about traveling, seeing new places, building a home filled with laughter and warmth. I imagined having the freedom to save for the future or pursue creative passions. Now, those dreams feel like distant stars, beautiful but unreachable. I postponed buying a car, saving for further education, or even planning a vacation, because I'm focused on making ends meet. Yet, I try to cope. I have learned to stretch every dollar, become an expert in budget apps, coupon clipping, and thrift shopping. I've found small joys in free community events or long walks that cost nothing but offer some peace. I cling to moments of connection and laughter because they remind me I'm not alone. I remind myself that survival is a kind of strength, even if it doesn't feel glamorous. There are times when despair threatens to take over, when I wonder if this financial tightrope will ever loosen. But I hold on to hope, fragile as it is, that with persistence, change is possible. Maybe someday, wages will catch up, or I'll find a path that leads to more stability. I keep my eyes on small goals, building an emergency fund, exploring side gigs, finding ways to improve my skills. Being trapped in this cycle has taught me humility and resilience. I've had to redefine what success looks like. It's no longer about big milestones but about surviving today and believing in a better tomorrow. It's about forgiving myself for what I can't control and celebrating the small victories. This story isn't unique, but it's mine. It's honest and raw, filled with fears and hopes. I share it because I know many others feel the same way, lost, struggling, and dreaming quietly. And if there's one thing I want to believe, it's that we're not alone, and that the system can change. Until then, I keep moving forward, one careful step at a time. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I never imagined my 20s would feel like walking through quicksand. The harder I try to move forward, the more I sink. Every month feels like a new battle with my finances, and somehow the bills keep winning. It's exhausting, and honestly, some days I'm not sure how I keep going. I graduated college a few years ago with a decent degree and what I thought was a clear plan: get a stable job, pay off student loans, save a bit, and build a life. But the economic environment has been this relentless tide pulling me under. Rent is the biggest weight. When I first moved into my tiny apartment, I was proud to finally have a place of my own. Now, that rent is nearly half my paycheck, and it just keeps creeping up every year. Utilities, groceries, insurance, transportation, everything rises. Meanwhile, my income barely inches forward. It's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up, but my feet are glued to the floor. Because of this, every choice I make in a day is calculated with money in mind. Should I fill up my gas tank or wait a little longer and hope I can squeeze by on bus fare? Can I afford to eat out with friends, or is that a luxury I need to skip this week? I catch myself avoiding social invites because they often come with costs: a drink here, a ride there, and I don't want to explain why I'm always the one saying no. Grocery shopping has become a tactical mission. I skim prices obsessively, put items back on the shelf, settle for less fresh, less healthy options because they're cheaper and last longer. I used to love cooking, experimenting with recipes, treating it like an art. Now, it feels like a chore, something I do to survive, not to enjoy. Sometimes I skip meals, not out of choice but because I'm tired or the money just isn't there. The emotional toll is invisible but heavy. There's a constant background anxiety, a low hum of worry that never quite switches off. I lie awake at night calculating what's due next week, trying to imagine where I can cut costs further. I hate that money controls so much of my mood and my energy. I feel ashamed for not being better at this, for not earning more, for feeling like I'm failing at this basic adult task. I often think about what I've had to postpone, the dreams that seem forever out of reach. I wanted to travel, to see new places and have experiences that could enrich my life. That's on hold indefinitely. I thought I'd have a savings cushion by now, maybe even start thinking about a home someday. But saving feels like a cruel joke when every month barely breaks even. I thought I'd have some freedom by now, but it feels like I'm tethered to a cycle of just getting by. Sometimes, I feel trapped in this system. It's like the economy is a machine that keeps pushing costs higher, while wages stay stubbornly flat. I'm working hard, sometimes overtime, juggling multiple side gigs, but it's still never enough to close the gap. It feels unfair, but I also feel powerless to change it. That helplessness is a heavy weight on my shoulders. Still, I cope. I've learned to find small moments of joy despite the stress. Writing helps me untangle my thoughts and remind myself I'm not alone in this. I've started practicing mindfulness, even a few minutes a day helps quiet the noise. I reach out to a close friend occasionally, just to share how I'm really feeling, and that human connection means more than I can say. I'm trying to be kind to myself, to accept that sometimes surviving is enough. I cling to hope, a quiet, stubborn hope that this will get better. That one day I'll have enough to breathe freely, to say yes to life without fear. I dream of stability, of feeling secure in my choices, of finally moving from survival mode to thriving. Those dreams keep me going, even when the path feels overwhelming. This story isn't unique, and that's both comforting and heartbreaking. I want to believe in a future where young adults like me aren't trapped by economic forces beyond our control, where living well isn't a luxury, but a given. Until then, I'm here, doing my best, trying to hold on and keep moving forward. Some days, it feels like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up just a little too fast, enough that no matter how hard I push, I'm barely keeping pace. The numbers on my paycheck don't stretch the way they used to, but the bills? They keep piling up, inching higher and higher with every passing month. It's like I'm caught in a loop, where the cost of living grows faster than anything I can earn, and I'm stuck trying to find a way to make it all fit. I'm 27 now, and for as long as I can remember, money has been this constant, quiet stressor hovering over my life. When I was a kid, I never really understood what it meant to worry about money. My parents shielded me from it as much as they could. But once I started working, it hit me. The first time I realized my paycheck wouldn't cover all my expenses, the sinking feeling in my chest was hard to describe. It was a mix of fear, frustration, and embarrassment. I thought, is this how it's going to be? Forever? The economic environment today isn't kind to people like me. Rent in the city has ballooned beyond what feels reasonable, groceries are more expensive than ever, and even utilities have a way of sneaking up on you with their surprise fees. I work a full-time job in retail, it's steady, but the wage growth is barely there, and I'm often working overtime just to keep up. Every time I try to budget, something unexpected pops up, a car repair, a medical bill, or even just the cost of replacing a phone that suddenly dies. It's exhausting. Mornings start early and are often rushed because I need to squeeze in a second job here and there. The alarm drags me out of bed before dawn, and I already feel the weight of the day pressing on my shoulders. I can't help but think about all the things I'd rather be doing, reading, learning a new skill, or even just resting, but there's no time for that. There's always a shift to cover, a bill to pay, or groceries to buy. Every decision feels heavy. Should I buy that textbook I need, or can I wait and borrow it from the library? Do I take the bus, which is cheaper but slower, or spend the extra few dollars on a rideshare so I don't miss my second job? Should I treat myself to a coffee to stay awake, knowing that every dollar spent is one less for rent? These little choices pile up and wear on me in a way that's hard to explain. It's like living in this constant state of compromise, where there's no real freedom, just necessity. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster I didn't sign up for. Some days, I feel determined and resilient, like maybe I can break free, save a little, and build something better. Other days, the hopelessness creeps in, gnawing at my confidence and making me question if it's even worth dreaming anymore. It's hard to admit, but sometimes I envy people who don't have to worry about money. Their lives must feel so much lighter. I try to cope in small ways. Sometimes I journal, just to get the stress out of my head and onto paper. Other times, I find comfort in music or podcasts that remind me I'm not alone in this struggle. I'm careful not to let my friends see the full extent of my stress because I don't want to be a burden. But it's tiring to keep the mask on all the time. There are dreams I've had to put on hold, the big ones that felt so close once but now seem like distant stars. I wanted to travel, to see the world beyond this city. I dreamed of going back to school to study something I love, maybe psychology or creative writing. I imagined owning a place of my own, where I could decorate every corner and feel truly safe. Those dreams feel paused indefinitely, waiting for a future that feels just out of reach. Yet, despite it all, I still hold on to hope. I remind myself that this situation isn't permanent. That the system feels rigged doesn't mean I can't find cracks to slip through. Maybe someday, I'll find a better job, or the economy will shift enough to give people like me a fair shot. Maybe I'll save enough to take that trip, or find the courage to go back to school. I don't know when, but I cling to the idea that there's more ahead than just this daily grind. It's strange, I'm trapped by my circumstances, but I refuse to let them define me. Every day, I'm learning more about resilience, about patience, and about fighting for small victories. I'm learning to be kinder to myself when I stumble and to celebrate the little wins, even if it's just making rent on time or cooking a meal at home instead of eating out. I want to believe that even in this tight grip of financial pressure, there's space for growth and for joy. That despite the heaviness, I can still carve out moments of light. It's hard, and some days it feels impossible, but I'm here, still moving forward, even if it's one careful step at a time. So, this is me, a young adult trying to navigate a world that's moving too fast, with expenses climbing higher than my income ever seems to. It's frustrating, exhausting, and sometimes heartbreaking. But it's also a story of endurance, quiet hope, and the stubborn belief that one day, this pressure will ease, and I'll finally breathe a little easier. Until then, I keep going. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just spinning in place, caught in a cycle that never lets me catch a real breath. Every morning I wake up with this heavy knot in my chest, not from the usual anxieties everyone has, but from something deeper, something I can't shake. It's the pressure, the relentless squeeze of trying to keep up financially when everything feels like it's moving too fast, too far ahead of me. I'm 27, supposed to be building my life, but instead, I'm stuck in a kind of slow-motion struggle that's exhausting in ways people don't always see. It wasn't always like this. I remember just a few years ago, fresh out of college, full of hope and plans. I thought the hard part was behind me: get a job, start paying off student loans, maybe save a bit, and eventually move out of my cramped apartment. But then, reality hit like a wall. The job I got barely covers rent, utilities, groceries, and those damn loan payments. Anything beyond that feels like a luxury I can't afford. The cost of living keeps going up, faster than any raise I get, or than I can even hope for. Rent is the biggest culprit. My landlord raised it twice in the past year alone. Each time I felt like I was losing a little more of my freedom. It's not just rent, either. Groceries cost more every week, gas prices climb, insurance premiums rise, and even the small joys, like going out with friends or buying a book, feel out of reach. Every dollar I make gets eaten up before I can even think about saving or dreaming. I try to budget meticulously, tracking every cent on my phone, cutting back wherever I can. No more weekend brunches, no more spontaneous coffees, no more new clothes unless absolutely necessary. I cook at home all the time, sometimes the same meal 3 days in a row because it's cheap and easy. I've stopped answering texts from friends inviting me out because I can't bear the disappointment of saying no yet again. It's isolating, but what choice do I have? This constant balancing act wears me down emotionally. There's a shame in feeling so fragile financially at this age, like I'm failing some invisible test I didn't even know I was supposed to be taking. I watch others buy homes, travel, start families, and it feels like they're living in a different world, one where money isn't a cage. I want to be happy for them, I really do. But sometimes it's hard not to feel left behind or invisible. I keep thinking about the future, but it feels like a distant fantasy rather than something I can actively build. I postponed dreams I once held tightly, traveling abroad, pursuing a creative hobby seriously, maybe even going back to school for something I love instead of what's practical. I put those ideas on hold because they seem like privileges I can't afford. Instead, I cling to smaller hopes, like paying off a chunk of my debt this year or finally affording a new mattress. Some days, the weight of it all feels unbearable. I lie awake at night worrying if I'll ever break free from this cycle, or if I'm just doomed to keep trading time and energy for barely scraping by. I sometimes get angry at the system that lets expenses soar while wages stagnate, at the unexpected bills that pop up like landmines, at myself for not being able to do more. But mostly, I feel exhausted. Still, I try to find little pockets of light. I remind myself that I'm not alone in this, even if it feels that way sometimes. I talk openly with a few close friends about money struggles, and that honesty helps. I celebrate small victories, like catching a discount or finally making it through the month without borrowing. I try to hold on to hope, not the flashy, unrealistic kind, but the steady kind that whispers I'll get through this, even if it takes time. I know this story isn't unique. There are so many others like me, quietly battling the same invisible battles. And maybe, sharing this is a small act of rebellion against the pressure to pretend everything is okay. Because it's not always okay. But it's real, and it's my life. And for now, that has to be enough. I never thought financial stress would become the soundtrack of my 20s, but here I am, caught in a loop where no matter how much I hustle, I'm always a step behind. It's this invisible weight, constantly pressing down, making every decision feel like a gamble. Expenses climb higher every month: rent, utilities, groceries, and my paycheck barely budges. The gap between what I earn and what I owe widens, and I'm trapped in this system that feels designed to keep me running in place. When I first got my job after college, I was optimistic. I had dreams of building a stable life, maybe saving a little, traveling someday. I thought if I worked hard enough, I could get ahead. But reality hit fast. Rent is a beast, taking half my salary, and then there's the student loans that hover like a shadow over everything. The cost of living spikes unexpectedly, and suddenly that extra money I thought I had disappears. Bills pile up faster than I can pay them, and I find myself making impossible choices. Some days, it's the small things that cut the deepest, choosing to eat ramen for the third day straight or skipping the doctor's appointment because I can't afford it. Social invitations become stressors, not joys, because each night out chips away at my fragile budget. I say no more often than yes, afraid of the consequences even when all I want is connection. It's lonely, isolating, like I'm locked out of a world everyone else seems to enjoy. This financial pressure gnaws at me, not just physically but emotionally. I wake up anxious, heart racing, worrying about the bills due next week or that unexpected expense lurking around the corner. I sometimes feel ashamed, like I've failed somehow, even though I know this isn't personal. It's systemic. The world around me moves on, rent hikes, gas prices climbing, groceries getting more expensive, all while wages stay stagnant. The system's gears grind on, and I'm caught in between, feeling powerless. The dreams I had? They've been quietly shelved. The idea of buying a home, traveling, further education, things I once saw as milestones on my path, now seem like distant fantasies. I postpone saving, delay investing in myself, push aside what I really want for survival's sake. It's heartbreaking to watch your ambitions shrink under the weight of bills and overdue notices. But somehow, I keep going. I've become an expert at budgeting, tracking every penny, clipping coupons, cooking meals from scratch. I lean on small comforts, walks in the park, free events, late-night calls with friends who understand. Sometimes, the simple act of sharing how hard it is brings a flicker of relief. It reminds me I'm not alone in this. I cope by holding on to hope, fragile as it may be. I look for opportunities to upskill, to find side gigs, to slowly build a safety net. I remind myself that survival itself is strength. That every small victory, paying off a debt, making it through the month without overdraft, is a step forward. Being trapped in this cycle has reshaped how I see success. It's no longer about flashy achievements but about resilience and the quiet courage to face each day. I'm learning to be kinder to myself, to accept that some things are beyond my control, and that's okay. This story isn't unique, it's the reality for many of us. I share it because I want to give voice to the silent struggles, to remind anyone else feeling this pressure that they're seen, that they're not alone. And maybe, together, we can hope for a system that works for us, not against us. Until then, I keep moving forward, one careful, hopeful step at a time. I'm 26, working 2 jobs, and still wondering how I'm supposed to keep up. Every month feels like a balancing act on a fraying tightrope, where the slightest gust of expense could send me tumbling. I always thought my 20s would be full of excitement and freedom, but mostly it's been a constant battle just to keep my head above water. I graduated college with some student debt and a hopeful mindset, thinking that hard work would pay off. But the economic reality I face now is so much harsher than what I expected. Rent alone is a crushing weight. My apartment is small and not in the best neighborhood, but it costs nearly half of what I bring home each month. And every year, it goes up a little more, while my raises barely cover a fraction of that increase. Utilities, groceries, internet, transportation, medical bills, all these costs creep up relentlessly. Meanwhile, my paycheck stretches thinner and thinner. I feel like I'm trapped in a system that's rigged against people like me. Expenses keep growing faster than income, and it feels impossible to get ahead. I watch the news about inflation and rising costs, and I can't help but feel it's a cruel joke played on those trying their best to survive. It's not just money, it's the feeling of being stuck, like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up while my legs get heavier. Because of this, every decision I make is clouded by financial worry. Should I fix my car now or risk taking the bus? Can I afford to visit my family this holiday, or will the gas and lodging costs break me? Even the little things, a coffee with friends, a night out, become weighed down with guilt and calculations. I often say no to social invitations, not because I don't want to go, but because I can't afford the extra spending. Grocery shopping is a battlefield. I skim prices obsessively, putting back fresh produce for canned vegetables, trading chicken breasts for cheaper ground meat. I buy bulk pasta and rice to stretch meals, but sometimes I skip meals altogether because I'm too tired or my stomach is just numb from stress. Cooking used to be a creative outlet for me, a way to relax and treat myself. Now it feels like a chore, just a necessary means to survive. The emotional toll is constant but invisible to others. There's this low hum of anxiety in my chest every single day. I lie awake at night, crunching numbers in my head, wondering if I can make it through the week without overdrafting my account. I feel shame for not being better with money, for not earning enough, and for feeling like I'm failing at being an adult. The pressure is exhausting, and sometimes it makes me want to just give up. I think a lot about the dreams I've had to postpone. I wanted to travel, to see the world beyond my city and gain new perspectives. I wanted to save up for a place of my own someday, a home where I could feel secure. I dreamed of pursuing a career that I loved, not just one that paid the bills. All those things feel like distant fantasies now, luxuries I can't afford to think about. At times, I feel crushed by the unfairness of it all. I'm working multiple jobs, often late hours, pushing myself to the brink, yet the gap between what I earn and what I owe never shrinks. The system feels indifferent to my struggle, expenses rise relentlessly, wages remain stagnant, and opportunity feels out of reach. That sense of powerlessness is one of the hardest parts to carry. Still, I find ways to cope. I try to celebrate the small wins, managing to save a few dollars this month, or cooking a decent meal on a tight budget. Writing helps me process these feelings and reminds me that I'm not alone. I reach out to a close friend now and then, sharing my worries even though I fear sounding like a burden. I practice breathing exercises and mindfulness to quiet the noise in my mind, even if just for a few moments. Despite everything, I hold on to hope. It's fragile and sometimes fleeting, but it keeps me going. I hope for a future where I'm not constantly scrambling, where I can breathe without fear of financial ruin. I hope for a life where my work is rewarded fairly and my dreams can take root. That hope is what keeps me moving forward, one uncertain step at a time. I know my story isn't unique. So many young adults are caught in this relentless cycle, trying to build a life in a world where the cost of living keeps climbing but income doesn't keep pace. It's heartbreaking and frustrating, but it's also a shared experience that binds us. I want to believe that change is possible, that one day the system will stop trapping people like me in this exhausting struggle. For now, I keep going. I remind myself that surviving is itself a form of strength. I'm here, still trying, still dreaming, still hoping. I never imagined I'd be this tired, this drained, and still feel like I'm running on empty. But here I am, almost 28, living in a small one-bedroom apartment that feels more like a cage than a home, weighed down by a pressure I can't seem to escape. It's this constant, gnawing financial strain that clings to me every day, a shadow that follows me from the moment I wake up until I finally fall asleep, hoping to forget it for just a few hours. I graduated college 6 years ago, full of hope and ambition. I thought my degree would be my ticket out of this endless loop of worry. But reality hit like a cold wave, the cost of living kept rising, rents ballooned, groceries got pricier, and my paychecks didn't keep up. It feels like I'm trapped in this system where expenses sprint ahead while my income barely lumbers along behind. Every month is a tightrope walk, balancing bills, groceries, and the rare, small comforts that remind me I'm still human, not just a number on a ledger. Mornings are the hardest. I wake up with this pit in my stomach, the dread of what the day will demand. The coffee I used to savor now feels like a necessity, a little jolt to face the reality that awaits. On my way to work, I pass by cafes and shops, and I want to go in, to indulge a little, but I know better. Even a simple latte feels like a luxury I can't justify. Instead, I sip cheap instant coffee at my desk, tasting not just bitterness but the sting of sacrifice. Food has become a calculated expense. I plan every meal to stretch my budget, buying generic brands, skipping fresh produce when it's too expensive, and avoiding eating out altogether. Friends invite me to dinners or weekend outings, and I decline more often than I'd like because the cost just doesn't fit into my spreadsheet of necessities. Sometimes I lie to them, saying I'm busy or tired, because admitting it's about money feels like failure, like I'm not keeping up with the life I'm supposed to be living. The bills come relentlessly. Rent, utilities, student loans, phone, internet, and somehow everything feels more expensive than it was last month. I dread opening the mail or checking my bank account. Sometimes I find myself holding my breath, hoping there won't be any unexpected charges or overdraft fees. The anxiety is constant, a tight coil in my chest that never fully unwinds. It's exhausting to live like this, always wondering if I'll have enough for the next month, the next week, even the next day. I've had to put so many dreams on hold. I once wanted to travel, to see the world and learn new things. I wanted to move out of this city, maybe buy a home someday, or at least have a space where I could feel free. But every plan feels distant and fragile. Saving for the future is almost impossible when the present demands so much. Even the idea of investing or building any financial security feels like a joke. I'm stuck in survival mode, and that's all I can manage. Sometimes, the weight of it all makes me feel invisible, like I'm shouting into the void but no one hears me. I don't want to burden my family or friends, they have their own struggles. But loneliness creeps in when you're too drained to reach out or when you think no one really understands how tight things are. The stigma around money struggles makes it hard to be honest. There's shame tied up in not having enough, like I'm less capable or less worthy. But I'm not just surviving, I'm coping, in small ways. I've learned to find moments of joy in simple things, a walk in the park, a good book borrowed from the library, a phone call with an old friend. I try to remind myself that this pressure doesn't define me. Some nights, when the world is quiet, I let myself dream again, of a day when I won't have to choose between paying rent or fixing my car, when I can eat out without guilt, when I can save money without anxiety clawing at my mind. I still hold on to hope, fragile but real. Hope that the system will shift, that wages will catch up to the rising costs, that I'll find opportunities that aren't just about scraping by. I hope to one day feel stable, even just for a while, to breathe without that constant tightness in my chest. I want to build a life where financial stress doesn't overshadow every decision, where I can finally invest in myself and my future. For now, I keep moving forward, one day at a time. It's not glamorous, and it's often lonely, but it's my reality. And maybe, sharing this story, being honest about the struggle, will remind someone else they're not alone, that there are others tangled in this same web, fighting to find a way out. Because underneath it all, I am more than my financial stress. I am still dreaming. I never thought I'd feel this way at 26. Like I'm running in place, sprinting against an invisible current that just keeps getting stronger. Every month, I open my bank app with a mix of dread and hope, hoping maybe this time there's a little extra, but mostly dreading the reality, the bills, the rent, the groceries, the gas, the credit card minimums, all clawing at what little money I have. It's like being stuck in a loop I didn't sign up for, but somehow I'm trapped in it. I grew up hearing the usual lines: if you work hard, you'll get ahead, save for a rainy day, invest in yourself. But the economy feels like a storm that just won't let up. Prices climb faster than I can catch up. Every time I think I've saved a little, something unexpected pops up, a car repair, a medical bill, or suddenly my utility bills jump again because of inflation. It's exhausting. I work full-time in marketing for a small company that's been pretty stable, thankfully. But my salary barely inches up each year, and honestly, the raise often doesn't cover even a fraction of the increased costs I face. My friends talk about buying homes or even just moving to bigger apartments, but for me, even renewing my lease feels like a heavy weight. I'm still in the same cramped place I rented 3 years ago, the one that's starting to feel more like a cage than a home. Every decision feels like a calculation between survival and sanity. When I want to hang out with friends, I hesitate because splitting a meal or grabbing drinks chips away at my already tight budget. Instead of spontaneous plans, I'm often choosing Netflix and chill nights at home, rationing my entertainment expenses carefully. I miss the freedom to just say yes without counting every dollar or worrying if that $15 dinner means I'll have to skip buying groceries later. Food is another battlefield. I've gotten really good at stretching a few ingredients across multiple meals. Sometimes I buy the cheapest canned goods or bulk pasta, not because I want to, but because I have to. There's this lingering guilt whenever I see fresh fruits or quality meats at the store. I want to eat healthier, but it feels out of reach financially. It's like my body and mind are paying a price because I can't afford to nourish myself properly. The emotional toll is subtle but relentless. Some days, I feel proud of how I manage to keep it all together, juggling bills, deadlines, and trying to keep my head above water. But more often, I feel overwhelmed and isolated. It's hard to explain to people who haven't been there, that feeling of constant pressure, of not knowing if you'll make it another month without a setback. It's a quiet kind of desperation, the kind that doesn't scream but eats away at you inside. There are nights when I lie awake, scrolling through job postings, wondering if a better opportunity might free me. But with each passing day, the reality sinks in: better jobs require more experience, more education, or sometimes connections I just don't have. Going back to school sounds like a good idea, but then there's the cost of tuition, books, and lost income while studying. The fear of sinking deeper into debt feels paralyzing. I've had to postpone dreams I used to hold dear. I wanted to travel, see the world beyond my small city, feel the freedom of exploring new places. I wanted to start a side business, create something meaningful on my own terms. I dreamed of owning a car, even a modest one, just so I wouldn't rely on unreliable public transport or expensive rideshares. But all those hopes feel like distant stars now, beautiful to look at, but unreachable. What keeps me going? Sometimes it's the small victories, like finally paying off a credit card balance, or finding a coupon that saves me a few bucks at the grocery store. Other times, it's the thought that maybe, just maybe, if I keep pushing, things will get better. That one day, the paycheck might stretch farther, or I might find a way to increase my income enough to cover the rising expenses without constant stress. I try to be honest with myself about how this pressure shapes who I am. It's taught me resilience and resourcefulness, sure. But it's also taught me patience with a side of frustration. I've learned to lean on friends when I can, even if it's just for a listening ear or a shared meal cooked at home. Vulnerability feels risky, but hiding the struggle only makes it heavier. Most days, I feel caught between gratitude and exhaustion. Grateful for what I have, a job, a roof, a support system, but exhausted by the relentless climb to keep everything balanced. It's like living inside a bubble that's slowly shrinking, pressing in from all sides. I hope that by sharing this, I'm not alone in feeling this way. That others understand what it means to be a young adult caught in a system where expenses outrun income, where dreams have to wait, where every day is a delicate act of balance. I hope we can find ways to change this, not just for me, but for the next generation coming up behind me. Until then, I hold on to small hopes. That one day, the weight will lift. That I'll breathe easier. That I'll reclaim those postponed dreams, to travel, to create, to live without constant fear of the next bill. For now, I keep moving forward, even if it's just one careful step at a time. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I never imagined my 20s would feel like this, like I'm sinking in quicksand, every effort to pull myself out only dragging me deeper. I'm 27 now, working a steady job, but the steady part feels like a cruel joke. My income barely keeps up with the rising tide of expenses. Rent goes up every year. Utilities, groceries, healthcare, all climbing faster than I can earn. And the weight of it sits heavy on me, like a constant pressure in my chest that I can't shake. When I graduated college, I was hopeful. I thought my degree would be my ticket out, the start of a life where I could breathe, plan, dream. But instead, I feel trapped. I'm stuck in a loop where expenses rise relentlessly, and my paycheck just doesn't stretch far enough. Every month is a balancing act, juggling bills, buying just enough food, keeping my phone on, saving nothing. If something unexpected happens, a car repair, a medical bill, it throws me off for weeks. I'm never really caught up. It's exhausting, making decisions that feel like choosing between survival and dignity. Sometimes I skip meals or rely on cheap, unhealthy food because fresh produce feels like a luxury. I delay doctor's visits or ignore that growing toothache, because how do you justify spending on health when rent is overdue? Social invitations are sources of anxiety, not joy. Going out means spending money I don't have, so I say no more than yes. It isolates me from friends, and loneliness creeps in. This ongoing financial pressure wears on my mental health too. I wake up with a knot in my stomach, thinking about how I'll cover this month's rent, or if I should cut back on groceries yet again. I feel shame for not having more, shame that I'm not doing enough. But deep down, I know it's not just me, the whole system seems rigged. Inflation is the silent thief, slowly stealing any progress I try to make. The cost of living rises, but wages stay flat. I'm trapped in a machine that keeps grinding, and I'm just a cog spinning faster and faster but going nowhere. The dreams I once held dear, buying my own home, traveling, maybe starting a family, feel like distant illusions now. I've had to push them aside, tuck them away, focus only on making it through today. Saving is impossible when every paycheck is swallowed by essentials. Investing in myself feels selfish when survival feels so fragile. It's heartbreaking to watch your ambitions wither while your responsibilities grow. I cope by finding small victories and moments of control. I became obsessive with budgeting, tracking every dollar, clipping coupons, cooking at home instead of ordering out. I picked up side gigs where I can, anything to pad the income just a little. I find comfort in simple, free pleasures, long walks, library books, phone calls with friends who understand. Sometimes I let myself cry or talk openly about how hard it is, which feels like a release in the middle of the storm. But the pressure doesn't disappear. Some nights, I lie awake, overwhelmed by the thought that this might be my life for years, no relief, just constant struggle. It's scary to imagine a future where I'm still trapped in this cycle. And yet, despite it all, I cling to hope. I try to remind myself that surviving this is a kind of victory. That resilience is strength, even if it doesn't feel like it. I want a world where young people like me don't have to sacrifice so much just to live. Where income grows with the cost of living, where housing is affordable, where healthcare is accessible. Until then, I keep going, one day at a time, holding on to whatever hope I can find, however fragile it feels. This is my truth, raw and real. If you're out there feeling the same weight, you're not alone. We're in this together, trying to navigate a world that often feels designed to keep us down, but somehow, we keep moving forward. It's hard to put into words what it feels like to live each day watching your expenses balloon while your paycheck stays the same, or worse, seems to shrink when you factor in all the rising costs around you. I'm 27, juggling a full-time job and a part-time gig, trying to keep my head above water in an economy that feels like it's been built to hold me down. Every morning starts with a quick scan of my bank account and a mental calculation of how long I can stretch what's left without hitting zero. Groceries, rent, utilities, transportation, phone bill, it's a never-ending list, and it seems like each month it costs more, even though I'm not earning enough to cover the basics comfortably. The rent is the worst. It's this constant weight, a number that hangs over me, rising just enough every year to squeeze out any small breathing room I might have had. I'm lucky enough to have a roof over my head, but it's in a small, noisy apartment far from where I work, and I spend a couple of hours a day commuting to save on housing costs. I dream of a home of my own, a space that feels safe and stable, but that dream keeps drifting further away as prices rise faster than my income ever will. This financial pressure seeps into every choice I make, turning even small decisions into math problems. Should I fix my car now, knowing that it might break down again? Or risk unreliable rides and added stress? Can I afford to celebrate my birthday this year, or will I have to keep it quiet to avoid extra spending? I find myself skipping meals some days, not because I'm hungry but because I can't afford both food and the electricity bill. Cooking, something I once enjoyed, has become just another task, one to get through rather than savor. It's not just about the money, it's the emotional weight. I carry this constant anxiety about bills and emergencies I can't predict. The stress wakes me up at night, the thought of an unexpected expense like a medical bill or car repair spinning through my mind. I feel ashamed, like I'm failing at adult life, like I'm falling behind while my peers seem to be moving forward. It's lonely because most people don't see the struggle beneath the surface. I've had to postpone so many things I once thought were normal parts of life. Travel, higher education, starting a family, even saving for retirement, all seem like distant fantasies. I wanted to go back to school, maybe get a degree that could open doors to better opportunities, but that's on hold indefinitely. I can barely keep up with my current bills, let alone take on more debt. I cope by breaking things down into tiny steps. Sometimes, it's just making it through the week without overdrafting. Other times, it's about celebrating small victories like saving a few dollars here or there. I try to remind myself that surviving this daily struggle takes a kind of strength. Writing helps, too, letting these feelings out on the page makes the weight feel a little lighter. Despite all this, I still hope. Hope that things will change, that I'll find a way to break free of this cycle. I imagine a future where I'm not consumed by financial anxiety, where I can afford to dream again, and where hard work truly pays off. For now, I hold on to that hope, fragile as it is, because it's the only thing that keeps me moving forward. This is the reality for so many young adults today, caught in a system where expenses rise faster than paychecks, and where hope is often the most valuable currency we have. I'm sharing this not because I have all the answers, but because I want someone to know they're not alone in this. We're trying. We're still here. Sometimes, when I lie awake in bed at night, I feel like I'm drowning in a slow tide of numbers, bills, prices, debts, that never seem to stop rising. It's like I'm stuck on a treadmill that's speeding up just a little too fast for me to keep pace, no matter how hard I run. I'm 26, working 2 part-time jobs, and still, I can barely scrape together enough to cover rent, food, and the essentials. And even when I manage that, the creeping pressure of everything else, student loans, credit card interest, the rising cost of healthcare, gnaws at me every day. I didn't always imagine my life like this. Growing up, I had dreams. I thought by my mid-20s, I'd be carving out a stable career, maybe traveling a bit, maybe even saving up to buy a little place of my own someday. But the world had other plans. The economy shifted, jobs became less reliable, and costs kept going up while wages barely budged. It's this invisible weight that shapes every choice I make, every conversation I have, every little moment in between. Mornings are the hardest. I wake up to the buzzing of my phone, alarms, reminders, everything that needs doing to keep me afloat. There's no room for hesitation because the clock is relentless. Breakfast is usually whatever's cheap and lasts longer, sometimes skipping it if money is tight that week. Lunch is often a packed sandwich from home, but sometimes I have to ration even that. I watch my coworkers order salads and fancy coffees, and part of me envies them, but I push that feeling down because I know envy doesn't pay bills. The rent alone takes up almost half of my paycheck. I live in a tiny, one-bedroom apartment with peeling paint and a drafty window, in a neighborhood that's slowly gentrifying. The landlord raises the rent every year, sometimes more than once, and I don't have the luxury to complain or move somewhere cheaper because those places don't exist nearby, or if they do, they're even worse. Utilities are another surprise each month, heating costs that spike in winter, water bills that seem to fluctuate for no reason. I've learned to be obsessive about shutting off lights and unplugging chargers, but the savings are minimal. Bills pile up in a way that feels endless. Credit card statements reminding me of the debt I carry from trying to fill the gaps during lean months. Medical bills from a recent appointment, which I postponed longer than I should have because I couldn't afford the copay. Phone and internet payments that are essential but add up to more than I want to admit. Every expense is a small avalanche, slowly burying me. There's an overwhelming sense of being trapped in a system that's rigged, one where expenses grow faster than income, where survival feels like a constant game of catching up but never quite succeeding. I feel like I'm spinning my wheels, watching my paycheck disappear before I even see it. It's exhausting. Physically and emotionally. Sometimes, I get caught in moments of panic, staring at the bank app on my phone, calculating if I can cover the next week, the next gas refill, the next emergency. The pressure makes my chest tighten. I feel anxious, like I'm carrying a weight that's too heavy for my shoulders. At times, I cry alone in my room, feeling ashamed that I can't seem to get ahead, that the American dream seems so distant for someone like me. But I cope the best I can. I talk to close friends who are in similar situations, and there's a comfort in knowing I'm not alone, even though it's hard to bring up sometimes. I write in a journal, scribbling down feelings and frustrations, which helps me put some order to the chaos. I try to find little moments of joy, a walk in the park, an old favorite movie, a cheap coffee from the corner store, because those moments remind me I'm still alive, still human. I've had to postpone so many dreams. A trip to visit family out of state, a chance to go back to school full-time, saving up for a car so I wouldn't have to rely on public transit in bad weather. Even dating feels complicated. How do you bring someone into your life when you're so consumed with worry about money? Sometimes I wonder if I'm sacrificing too much, if these small postponements will eventually add up to a life half-lived. Yet, despite everything, I still hold on to hope. Maybe it's stubbornness or simply the will to survive, but I believe that someday, things will change. I hope for a future where I can breathe easier, where my work feels valued and my efforts actually lead to security instead of just exhaustion. I dream of a day when I can stop counting every penny and start investing in myself, in relationships, in possibilities. For now, though, I take it one day at a time. I remind myself that this is not who I am, just a chapter in a longer story. And while the economic system feels like a trap, I am still here, still fighting, still hoping. Sometimes, that has to be enough. Because at the end of the day, surviving isn't just about money, it's about holding on to the pieces of yourself that no hardship can steal. It's hard to put into words what living under constant financial pressure feels like. Most days, it's this low, gnawing anxiety at the back of my mind, like a shadow that never quite leaves. I'm 26, working full-time, trying to make ends meet, but the truth is, no matter how hard I push or how many hours I put in, I always feel like I'm sinking just a little deeper. I grew up believing if you worked hard, you'd be okay. That's what my parents told me, what everyone said. But now, with the cost of everything soaring, rent, groceries, utilities, insurance, and my paycheck barely moving, I'm starting to see that it's not just about effort. It's about the system we're trapped in, this cycle where prices climb relentlessly but wages stay stagnant, like a treadmill that keeps speeding up while you run as fast as you can. My mornings start with a small ritual. I check my bank account first thing, almost like a reflex. I've gotten so used to doing this that it's the first thing I do when I wake up, before coffee, before anything. I brace myself to see how much is left after yesterday's purchases, bills, and that one emergency Uber ride I couldn't avoid. Sometimes, there's just enough to cover the essentials, rent and utilities, but anything extra? That's a luxury I can't afford. The truth is, I'm always calculating. Should I buy the cheaper brand of milk? Is it worth skipping lunch today? Can I afford to fill the gas tank or should I bike, even if it makes me late? The stress isn't just about numbers, though. It's about the feeling of being stuck, like no matter what I do, the gap between where I am and where I want to be keeps widening. I want to save money, I really do. I have dreams, traveling, maybe even owning a little apartment someday, starting a side project, going back to school, but those dreams have been quietly shoved to the back of my mind, put on pause indefinitely. Because when your paycheck doesn't stretch, you learn to focus on survival. I remember last year when the rent went up by $150. That was a blow. I sat on my bed, staring at the lease renewal notice, feeling like I was being crushed. I tried to calculate if I could move somewhere cheaper, but with rising rents everywhere, even a budget place was barely affordable. So I swallowed the disappointment and tightened my belt even more. I cut back on everything, no more takeout dinners, no coffee runs, I canceled my streaming subscriptions. Even then, it felt like a drop in the bucket. Every day is a balancing act. I often catch myself dreaming about what I'd do if I suddenly had a bit of breathing room financially. I imagine waking up without that pit in my stomach, buying a nice meal once in a while, maybe taking a weekend trip, even just a spontaneous night out with friends. But then reality crashes back in, reminding me how fragile that fantasy is. It's hard to talk about this openly with others because there's this unspoken expectation that young adults should be thriving, chasing opportunities, building careers, living their best lives. But for me, and so many like me, it's just about scraping by. The emotional toll is heavy. Some nights, I lie awake staring at the ceiling, overwhelmed by a sense of hopelessness. It's not just about money, it's about feeling powerless in a system that seems indifferent to your struggles. I feel angry sometimes, frustrated at how the rules of the game seem stacked against people like me who aren't born with advantages. But I also feel guilty, because I know I'm fortunate in some ways. I have a steady job, supportive family, decent health. Yet, still, I feel trapped. Coping means learning small ways to keep going. I've started meditating, just a few minutes a day, to calm my racing thoughts. I reach out to friends, even if it's just to vent or share a laugh. I write sometimes, to remind myself that my feelings are valid, that I'm not alone. And I try to hold on to the hope that things can get better, even if it's hard to see right now. One of the hardest parts is watching my friends move forward, buying homes, traveling, saving for their futures, while I feel stuck in place. I try not to compare myself, but it's difficult not to when social media constantly highlights the lives I can't afford. It makes me question if I'm doing enough, if there's something wrong with me for struggling. But I remind myself that everyone's journey is different, even if it doesn't always feel that way. I still have dreams. I want to build a life where I'm not constantly worried about money, where I can plan for the future without that nagging fear of unexpected expenses ruining everything. I want to feel secure, not just scraping by day to day. And while it feels far away, I'm trying to hold on to that hope. Because if I lost it, what would I have left? So, for now, I keep moving forward, one day at a time. I manage my budget, find little ways to save, and try to stay kind to myself when I fall short. I remind myself that my worth isn't tied to my bank balance. And maybe, someday, I'll look back and see that this struggle was part of the story that made me stronger, even if it feels like a heavy weight right now. This isn't just my story, it's the story of so many young people trying to carve out a future in a world that feels increasingly unfair. And maybe by sharing it honestly, we can start to change the conversation about what it means to live and survive in today's economy. Because it's not just about numbers on a page. It's about real lives, real hopes, and the quiet resilience it takes to keep going when the odds feel stacked against you. I'm 26 years old, living paycheck to paycheck, and feeling like I'm stuck in a relentless cycle where no matter how hard I work, I'm falling behind. It's like trying to run uphill on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. Every time I think I'm catching up, prices for rent, groceries, gas, all of it, jump again. Meanwhile, my salary barely moves. This isn't just a money problem, it's a pressure that twists itself around every decision I make, every thought I have about my future. I remember the day I got my first full-time job after college. I was so proud, thinking I'd finally be able to build the life I imagined. I pictured paying my own rent, having a little savings, maybe even going on trips with friends. But reality hit fast. The apartment I could afford then feels like a distant memory because rents have shot up so much. And utilities? Forget it, heating my apartment in winter feels like an impossible luxury some months. I've learned to live with the heater barely on, wrapped in layers inside my own home just to keep costs down. Every month, I'm haunted by bills. I lay awake at night running the numbers over and over, trying to figure out if I can squeeze out just enough to get through. Food costs have skyrocketed too. I've stopped buying fresh fruit and vegetables because they're too expensive. I survive on canned goods, rice, and whatever sale items I can find. It's not healthy, but sometimes it feels like I don't have a choice. When I try to eat better, my budget collapses. It's a cruel trade-off, health or financial survival. Social life? That's been sacrificed too. Invitations to dinners or movies come with a mix of joy and dread. Saying yes means spending money I don't really have, saying no makes me feel isolated. I miss the carefree days of just hanging out without worrying about every cent. Loneliness creeps in, but I hide it well because I don't want friends to see me struggling. There's a shame attached to money problems that's hard to explain. Like you're failing in a way that's your own fault, even though deep down you know it's the system making it nearly impossible to get ahead. Mental health takes a hit from all this. Anxiety and stress have become my constant companions. I feel exhausted all the time, not just physically but emotionally. The pressure to keep up, to not fall behind, is overwhelming. Some days, the thought of another month like this makes me want to give up. But I keep going, because what other choice is there? I distract myself with podcasts, journaling, and late-night walks. Those moments of calm help, but they don't erase the worry. I've had to postpone so many dreams. I used to think I'd own my own home by now. I pictured a small place with plants and a cozy reading nook. That dream feels further away every day. I've pushed back plans to go back to school or take professional courses that might increase my earning potential because the cost seems impossible right now. Even vacations, something I once saw as a chance to recharge and connect with life, are luxuries I can't afford. It's like I'm living in survival mode, constantly putting off the future for some distant maybe. Some days, I feel trapped. Like the system is set up to keep people like me just barely afloat. Expenses rise relentlessly, but wages don't. It's a treadmill designed to wear us down. I worry that this financial pressure will define my entire adulthood, that I'll never break free, never build the life I want. It's a scary thought, but it's also a reality many of us face. Still, I try to hold on to hope. I remind myself that I'm resilient, that I've made it this far despite everything. I look for little victories, like managing to save a bit, or finding a side gig that brings in some extra cash. I talk openly about my struggles when I can, even though it's hard, because it helps me feel less alone. I believe change is possible, both personally and systemically. I dream of a world where young people don't have to choose between paying rent and eating well, where wages rise with living costs, and where financial pressure isn't a daily burden. This is my story, honest, raw, and real. If you're in the same boat, know you're not alone. We're navigating this difficult landscape together, and sometimes, just surviving is a victory worth acknowledging. It's a quiet kind of desperation that settles in when you realize the world around you is moving forward, fast and loud, while you're stuck trying to keep up with bills that keep getting bigger and a paycheck that never seems to stretch far enough. I'm 26, and for the past few years, financial pressure has been this constant shadow following me everywhere, coloring every decision I make. The economy isn't just a headline or some abstract concept to me. It's the reality I wake up to every morning. Rent that climbs faster than I can negotiate a raise. Grocery prices that make me choose between fresh vegetables and canned beans. Gas prices that turn my daily commute into a game of how low can I go? My income has remained stubbornly flat, barely rising, while everything else keeps inching upwards. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how hard I work, the hole keeps getting bigger. I feel trapped in a system that doesn't seem built for people like me. I'm working 2 jobs right now, one full-time with benefits, one part-time freelance, and yet I'm always calculating, always subtracting. After rent, utilities, phone, and groceries, I'm left with maybe $100 to cover everything else, transportation, medicine, occasional emergencies. It's never enough, and that never enough feels like a weight pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe sometimes. This pressure touches everything. On a basic level, it changes how I shop, eat, and live. I avoid social outings because even a coffee with friends feels like a luxury I can't afford. I buy clothes at thrift stores and patch shoes rather than replace them. The idea of saving for the future? It feels like a cruel joke. How do you plan for tomorrow when you're not sure you can pay for today? Emotionally, it's exhausting. There's this persistent anxiety that creeps into my thoughts. Will I have enough for rent next month? What if my car breaks down? Can I afford to see a doctor if I get sick? Nights are often restless because my brain won't stop spinning these what-if scenarios. I try to stay positive, but some days it feels like swimming upstream with no shore in sight. I've postponed so many dreams because of money. Going back to school for something I'm passionate about feels impossible without a mountain of debt waiting for me. I wanted to travel, to see the world beyond my small town, but those flights and hotels feel like distant fantasies. Even simple things, like getting a place of my own or starting a family, seem years away, maybe decades. Sometimes, I wonder if I'm just sacrificing my whole life to survive in this endless cycle. To cope, I try to find small moments of control. Budgeting obsessively, clipping coupons, and learning to live with less. I keep a journal to vent out my fears and frustrations. Writing makes the burden feel a little lighter. I lean on friends who understand, though it's hard to talk about money without feeling ashamed or like I'm complaining. There's also a stubborn hope inside me, a belief that things can change, even if slowly. I hold on to that hope because without it, what else do I have? The truth is, I'm tired. Tired of feeling like I'm just barely surviving. But I'm also determined. Determined to keep pushing forward, even when the path is unclear and the weight is heavy. I want to believe that someday, the system will shift, or I'll find a way out, and the dreams I've had to put on hold will come back within reach. If there's one thing I want people to understand, it's this: living under financial pressure isn't just about numbers. It's about the quiet, daily battles that shape how we live, love, and hope. And while it can feel isolating, I'm here to say, if you're in this too, you're not alone. We're in this together, trying to carve out a life in a world that feels stacked against us. And that's enough reason to keep going. I wake up every morning with this heavy knot in my chest, a mix of anxiety and exhaustion that's become my new normal. It's like stepping onto a treadmill that's moving faster and faster, but no matter how hard I run, I'm stuck in the same place, or worse, slipping backward. The money I bring home just isn't enough, and every day feels like a tightrope walk over a pit that keeps getting deeper. I'm 27 now, and for most of my adult life, I've juggled jobs, budgets, and hopes that one day, things would finally line up. But the cost of living keeps climbing, and my paycheck? It's barely budged. Rent, utilities, groceries, everything adds up quicker than I can earn it, and the gap between my income and my expenses widens like a canyon I can't cross. Some months I make it through without falling behind, but often I find myself digging into whatever savings I can scrape together or leaning on credit cards with interest rates that feel like chains tightening around my wrists. I remember the dreams I had just a few years ago, before this constant financial pressure weighed me down. I wanted to travel, to see the world beyond the city skyline I stare at through my tiny apartment window. I wanted to save up for a home, to have a little space that felt like mine, where I could build something stable. I dreamed of going back to school, maybe get a degree that could open doors to better paying jobs. But those dreams? They've been shoved into a dusty corner, covered by the everyday reality of how am I going to pay this month's bills? I've tried to budget tightly, clipping coupons and skipping things that once felt essential, coffee runs with friends, occasional dinners out, even the gym membership that used to help me feel sane. Sometimes, I wonder if I'm being foolishly optimistic or just plain stubborn, holding on to the hope that better days are coming. But even hope has its limits when you're constantly choosing between rent and groceries, or deciding whether to fix a leaky faucet or pay off a credit card bill. The worst part isn't just the money. It's the way this pressure gnaws at my self-worth. I look around at peers who seem to be moving forward, buying cars, starting families, investing in their futures, and I feel stuck, like I'm living someone else's life. The comparison is brutal because it's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking I'm failing, that I just haven't worked hard enough. But the truth is, I am working hard. Sometimes 2 jobs. Often long shifts that leave me too tired to think about anything beyond sleep. This constant stress plays with my mind. I catch myself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, calculating expenses, and wondering how I'll survive the next unexpected cost, a medical bill, a car repair, or even something as simple as a phone breaking down. I feel trapped in a system that seems designed to keep people like me barely afloat, with expenses rising faster than any raises I might get. It's like the world expects me to keep pace, but it never hands me the tools to actually do it. Yet, amidst all this, I try to find ways to cope. I talk to close friends who understand the grind, and sometimes just saying things out loud helps lighten the load. I remind myself that this is temporary, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. I dive into small pleasures when I can afford them, a good book borrowed from the library, a walk in the park, or cooking a comforting meal at home. Those moments remind me there's still a life beyond the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. I also hold on tightly to my dreams, even if they feel distant. I imagine a future where I'm not waking up with that same crushing anxiety, where I'm not forced to make impossible financial choices. Maybe one day I'll have a steady job that pays enough to cover more than just the basics, where I can save for the unexpected and invest in my happiness. Maybe I'll travel to the places I've only seen in pictures or return to school to finally finish that degree. For now, though, I'm stuck navigating this system, one that keeps raising the bar while lowering the floor beneath me. It's exhausting, humbling, and sometimes heartbreaking. But I keep moving forward, step by step, hoping that my persistence will pay off in the end. Because if there's one thing this ongoing struggle has taught me, it's that giving up isn't an option. Not when the dreams I carry inside me are worth fighting for, even if they have to wait a little longer. So I'll keep waking up with that heavy knot, I'll keep facing the pressure, and I'll keep hoping. Because despite the system that feels designed to trap me, I still believe in a future where I can breathe easier, and live fully, beyond just surviving. Some days, it feels like I'm just treading water, barely keeping my head above the relentless tide of bills, rent, groceries, and the little unexpected expenses that sneak up and drag me down. I'm 26, working a decent job, or at least it used to feel decent before inflation turned everything upside down. I thought by now I'd have more control over my life. Maybe even be saving up for something big, a car, a trip, or just an emergency fund, but instead, every paycheck disappears faster than I can count. I wake up each morning with a knot in my stomach. It's this constant, low-grade anxiety that never really goes away, even if I try to push it down. I check my bank balance on my phone, sometimes more out of habit than hope, and there it is, just enough to get me through the week, maybe, if I'm careful. But that feeling of enough is so fragile. It's like balancing on a tightrope, and one small misstep, like a higher electricity bill, or my phone dying and needing to be replaced, can send me tumbling. The thing is, I don't think anyone really talks about this trap I feel stuck in. It's not just the numbers on a screen, it's how it controls every decision I make. When a friend suggests going out for dinner or grabbing drinks, my stomach twists into knots before I even say no. It's exhausting, always weighing fun or comfort against survival. And I hate that. I hate having to say no to things that once seemed so small and easy. But now, they feel like luxuries I can't afford. I remember when I first moved out on my own, so much optimism. I was sure I'd figure out a way to make it all work, that hard work would pay off. But with rent going up every year, groceries costing more, and my income barely inching forward, it feels like I'm stuck in a loop where expenses sprint ahead and I'm left chasing them, breathless. It's like no matter how much I hustle, how many hours I put in, the system's designed so the money never really stays with me. I've had to make sacrifices, some so small they barely register but add up in ways that wear on me. I switched from fresh produce to canned and frozen to save money, even though it's not the same. I cut back on transportation, walking more or biking, even when it's inconvenient. I stopped replacing clothes until something literally falls apart. I canceled my streaming subscriptions one by one. These things feel like survival strategies, but they also isolate me. I feel like I'm watching the world go on without me sometimes. The emotional toll is heavy. There's this gnawing shame that creeps in, like I'm failing at something that should be simple, managing money, being an adult. And then there's frustration, that sharp edge of anger at a system that seems rigged against people like me. I'm not asking for a handout, just a fair shot. But it's hard not to feel invisible or overlooked when the costs of living rise and wages don't follow. It's this slow, grinding pressure that wears you down from the inside. Some nights, I lie awake wondering if this is what life is supposed to feel like. Always stressed, always scraping by, never able to breathe or dream. It's hard to imagine a future where I'm not constantly worried about money. I had dreams once, traveling to new countries, going back to school, maybe buying a little place of my own someday. Those dreams feel distant now, like flickering lights I can barely reach. I tell myself to be patient, that someday things will get better, but patience wears thin when you feel like you're stuck in a cage. I try to cope the best I can. Sometimes it's distraction, binge-watching shows or scrolling through social media, even though I know it won't fix anything. Other times, it's talking to friends who get it, or writing in my journal, trying to unpack the jumble of feelings. I've started learning about personal finance online, trying to find little hacks to stretch every dollar. But no matter what, the basic fact remains: expenses keep climbing, and income stays stubbornly still. I've even thought about switching careers, going back to school, or taking on a second job, but those choices come with their own costs, time, energy, money, that I don't have. It's a vicious cycle. I sometimes wonder if I'm alone in this, or if millions of others my age feel the same weight, the same frustration. Maybe that's what makes it harder, the silence, the stigma around financial struggle, especially when so many expect young adults to be figuring it out or living their best lives. I guess what hurts the most is the feeling of being trapped. Like the system moves faster than I can run, like there's this invisible hand pushing me down even when I'm trying to climb. And it's not just about money. It's about freedom, peace of mind, and the simple ability to plan for a future that doesn't feel so precarious. But despite it all, I hold on to some hope. Hope that one day, the hours I work will be rewarded fairly. That wages will catch up to the real cost of living. That I can breathe without that tight knot in my chest. And maybe, just maybe, those postponed dreams will come back into focus, no longer out of reach but part of a life I can build. Until then, I keep going, paycheck to paycheck, decision to decision, trying to find small moments of grace and resilience in a world that feels overwhelmingly expensive. It's not the story I imagined for myself, but it's my story. And telling it, even in this quiet, honest way, feels like a small act of resistance. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.